Elijah and the prophets of Baal. After telling King Ahab that God was going to stop rain falling in the land of Israel because of the people's disobedience, Elijah hid in a ravine and was fed by ravens. When the water dried up, God told him to go to the town of Zarephath in Sidon, where God looked after him along with a widow and her son who had shared their food with Elisha. After 3 years without rain, the Lord told Elijah, "Go and meet King Ahab. I will soon send rain." So Elijah set off to meet Ahab. The ground was dusty and dry. People were starving and desperate for food. By this time there was no food in Samaria, so King Ahab sent for Obadiah, who was in charge of the king's palace. Obadiah was a true follower of the Lord, who had secretly hidden 100 prophets of God in 2 caves to spare their lives. "Let's look at every spring and search every valley and grass," King Ahab ordered. "Otherwise our animals will die." Ahab went to search in one direction, Obadiah went in another direction. Obadiah searched high and low for water or pasture for the animals. But the ground was parched, the rivers were dry, and the springs were not flowing. As Obadiah was searching, he suddenly saw Elijah. Obadiah bowed down to the ground before Elijah. "Elijah, is it really you, Master?" he asked. "Yes," Elijah replied. "Go tell King Ahab that I am here." Obadiah was afraid. "If I tell King Ahab you are here, but when he arrives you have gone, he will kill me. He has his men and leaders of other countries searching for you." Elijah answered, "I serve the Lord of heaven's armies. I promise I will stand before Ahab today." So Obadiah went to Ahab and told him where Elijah was. Then Ahab went to meet Elijah. When King Ahab saw Elijah, he was angry. "Is it you, the biggest troublemaker in Israel?" he fumed. "I am not the one causing trouble," Elijah replied. "You and your father's family have caused all this trouble. You have not obeyed the Lord's commands. You have followed the false god Baal and other idols. This is what you must do. Summon all Israel to meet me at Mount Carmel. Bring the 450 prophets of Baal and the 400 prophets of Asherah with you." So Ahab called all the Israelites and those prophets to Mount Carmel. Elijah stood before the large crowd. "How long will you try to serve both Baal and the Lord? If the Lord is the true God, follow him. But if Baal is the true God, follow him." The people remained silent. Elijah continued, "I am the only prophet of the Lord here, but there are 450 prophets of Baal and 400 prophets of Asherah. So bring 2 bulls. Let the prophets of Baal kill 1 bull, cut it into pieces, and put the meat on the wood. But they are not to set fire to it. Then I will do the same with the other bull, and I will put it on the wood, but I will not set fire to it. You prophets of Baal, pray to your God, and I will pray to the Lord. The God who answers and sets fire to the wood, he is the true God." Everyone agreed that this was a good idea. Elijah told the prophets of Baal to go first. They prayed to Baal from morning until noon. They shouted, "Baal, answer us!" But there was no sound. No one answered. They danced around the altar they had built. Elijah began to make fun of them. "Pray louder," he shouted. "Maybe Baal is thinking, or maybe he is busy or traveling. Maybe he's sleeping. so you will have to wake him up." The prophets prayed louder and cut themselves with swords and spears until their blood flowed to get Baal to listen to them. The afternoon passed, and the prophets continued to act wildly. They continued until it was time for the evening sacrifice, but no voice was heard. Baal did not answer. No one paid attention. Then Elijah said to all the people, "Gather round." Elijah rebuilt the altar of the Lord because it had been torn down. He rebuilt it using 12 stones, one for each of the 12 tribes. "Fill 4 jars with water and pour the water on the meat and on the wood," Elijah ordered. It was a strange request, but they did it. Then Elijah said, "Do it again." So they drenched the altar once more. Elijah ordered, "Do it a 3rd time." The water ran off the altar and filled the ditch. It was time for the evening sacrifice. Elijah prayed, "Lord, I ask you now to prove that you are the God of Israel and that I am your servant. Show these people that you, Lord, are God. Then they will know that you are bringing them back to you." Suddenly, fire from the Lord came down on the altar. It burned the sacrifice, the wood, the stones, and the ground around the altar. It also dried up the water in the ditch. When all the people saw this, they fell down to the ground. They cried, "The Lord is God! The Lord is God!" Elijah ordered them to capture all the false prophets, take them down to Kishon Valley, and execute them. Elijah went to find King Ahab. "Now go, eat and drink. A heavy rain is coming." So King Ahab went to eat and drink. Elijah climbed to the top of Mount Carmel with his servant. There he bent down to the ground with his head between his knees and prayed for rain. Then Elijah said to his servant, "Go and look toward the sea. Are there any clouds?" The servant went and looked. He said, "I see nothing." Elijah prayed and told him to look again. This happened 6 more times. Each time the servant returned to report there was no rain on the horizon. "Go and look a 7th time," Elijah told his servant. The 7th time the servant said, "I see a small cloud. It's the size of a man's fist. It's coming from the sea." Elijah told the servant, "Go to King Ahab and warn him to get his chariot ready to return home immediately. If he does not leave now, the rain will stop him." After a short time, the sky was covered with dark clouds. The wind began to blow. Then a heavy rain began to fall. Ahab got in his chariot and started back to Jezreel. The Lord gave his power to Elijah, who tightened his clothes around him and ran ahead of King Ahab all the way to Jezreel. It was about the same distance as a marathon run. God had shown his mighty power through the prophet Elijah.